Hey guys, thanks for coming to today's training. Really appreciate it. Dari Ellis is here. She's our new BSc. Welcome, Dari Ellis. Glad to have you on the team. So today's training is going to be about prompting. What do you guys know about prompting? What are some key features of the prompt? And anyone online could participate too. Okay, there's different levels of prompting. Does prompting usually come before or after the behavior? Before, so it's an antecedent, right? It's kind of an extra environmental antecedent that we add to the environment. And what are we looking to do with a prompt? Yeah, we're trying to encourage a behavior, which was one of the key features of a prompt, that it encourages the behavior we're looking to see. What is another feature of a prompt we need to keep in mind? Should prompts stay in place forever? No, right? Yeah, hopefully not. They should be what? Faded out. And they should be, in other words, temporary, right? We should use prompting to our advantage to promote a behavior that we'd like to see, and then work on as that behavior starts to contact reinforcement and starts to maintain in that person's life, we look to fade the prompt away. So this training is first going to get into what prompting is, and then we're going to talk about ways to fade it or make it a temporary antecedent that we fade. And the idea behind this, guys, is we want the behavior to happen so it contacts reinforcement, but we want to transfer the control from the prompt to the natural stimuli that will naturally produce the behavior. And we'll get into that. All right, let's continue. You're probably on like the shared screen. There you go. So prompts, and we mentioned this, prompts are temporary supplementary antecedent stimuli used to occasion a correct response in the presence of the natural SD. So we want to make sure the natural SD is present. And that's what we eventually want to control the behavior. We don't want the prompt to always control the behavior. People can become prompt dependent. And when we think of a prompt, the way I think about it is that we're making a behavior easier for the person to complete, right? How many times were we in math class or something like that? And we want the teacher to come over and provide their assistance to us, maybe if we weren't figuring something out. The teacher came over, gave us some prompting, and maybe we were able to get the answer. Well, the teacher doesn't always want to have to walk over to that student. They're hoping to fade their supports away. So, so the prompt is essentially making a behavior easier to complete for the person, and therefore making it much more likely to occur. When we make a behavior easier, it's much more likely to occur. And we know the opposite too. When behaviors are tough, difficult, long lasting, we're likely to do what? If they're really effortful for us, we might what? Starts with a P. Yes, we might procrastinate those behaviors. We might want to escape those behaviors. We might not want to deal with those behaviors here in the moment. So think of a prompt as we're helping our VIP complete a behavior that might be more effortful for them. And we're making it easier for them, much more likely for them to complete, which is a great antecedent strategy for a lot of our skill building tactics, right? When we are helping someone do dishes, a great antecedent strategy might be to provide assistance. The prompt is essentially doing that, making it easier for the person to complete the behavior. Any questions about prompting? That's the way I kind of think about it in my mind, and I hope you guys could think about it that way too now. Anything else to add that I may have missed? Or any questions? All right, guys, there's two types of prompts that we should be aware of in our work. The most common one that we see throughout the day all the time is a response prompt. And what does the word response mean? It's really important that we understand the terminology in ABA. What does response mean in ABA? Go ahead. No wrong answers. It's a single instance of what? Behavior. Yes, a single instance of a behavior. So when I see the word response prompt, I'm thinking, well, let's read the definition first. Operate directly on the response to cue a correct response. Okay, that sounds complicated. There's three main forms of response prompt: verbal instruction, modeling, and physical guidance. The way I think about response prompt is if I'm the clinician, I'm doing a behavior to get a behavior from my VIP. I'm engaging in some kind of behavior myself to make their behavior easier to accomplish, right? Which could be physical guidance. And we see folks using hand-over-hand assistance to help our VIPs complete a behavior. I also see people using modeling, right? Where we're modeling that behavior and hoping that our VIP will engage in the correct response. And then verbal instructions that I see quite frequently, where we're giving direction to the VIP about what behavior that we would like to see from them. So when I see the word response prompt, think I'm doing a behavior to get a behavior from someone else. Any questions or anything to add about response prompts? And we're going to get further into it in the next couple slides. Any questions? The next type of prompt we need to be aware of is called a stimulus prompt. And a stimulus prompt operates directly on the antecedent task stimuli to cue a correct response in conjunction with the critical SD. Okay, that sounds complicated too. When I think of stimulus prompts, I'm thinking about something that's placed in the environment extra that cues a correct response. What might that be? A preferred item, perhaps. Think about a stimulus prompt. Say I'm working in a factory and I'm not wearing my safety gear. And the manager notices that. And there's a bunch of people not wearing their safety gear. What might the manager put on the wall to prompt me to put on my safety equipment?
Like
a sign, right? That sign could be very effective in antecedent prompt to evoke a behavior with my employees, right? Wear your safety equipment. Have like a picture of a, right? And we saw it in this reminded me of chemistry class. What was it like? Sally didn't wear her safety goggles. Now she doesn't need them. You guys remember that poster? Yeah, the Mr. Yuck stickers, yeah. So these stimulus prompts are something additional added to the environment that hopefully will evoke behaviors we like to see. Now, what happens, and this is a little bit extra, but what happens to a stimulus prompt as we start to contact it? We see it in the same location. Every time we go into this factory, we see the same sign. We see the same sign. What happens? Yes, we start to ignore it. It starts to lose its effectiveness as a prompt. A good thing is to keep changing that prompt over and over, and also move the location of that prompt. That could be very effective for the person to notice it again. But the same as response prompts, stimulus prompts should be faded. It shouldn't be something that we always keep in place. If we notice a behavior isn't maintaining after we start to fade a stimulus prompt, where can we suspect the problem lies? The key word, what was it?
It didn't contact reinforcement.
Yes, it didn't contact enough reinforcement. Antecedents are very powerful to start behaviors. But if the behaviors don't maintain, we have to suspect that there was not enough reinforcement contacted for that behavior to maintain. So these are the two types of prompts that we should be very aware of in our work. And we're going to get into each one of them a little bit. There's always more to learn, guys, in the field. All right, let's continue, please. Okay, risks, and I'm sure we talked about these already. Practitioners must be aware that there are risks of prompt dependency with the application of a response and stimulus prompts. This occurs due to a failure to transfer stimulus control from the prompt to the desired stimuli. So what does that mean? It means that I want the person to engage in this behavior with the natural SD. So for instance, if I have a sign in the bathroom that's prompting my employees to wash their hands, maybe I'm in a restaurant, but we should all wash our hands in the bathroom, not just at a restaurant. And I eventually want to fade that sign away. So when someone approaches the sink, they just engage in washing their hands. They don't need that prompt always. They don't need someone to say, hey, it's time to wash our hands. We want to fade it so when they approach the natural SD, or the sink in this case, that they engage in that behavior, right? We want that natural SD to control the behavior. And that's where we get the stimulus control. Stimulus is like an antecedent. I'm approaching the sink. Control means that I'm engaging the correct behavior when I approach that stimulus. So fading prompts is very important. How to remedy. ABA clinicians establish stimulus control with frequent differential reinforcement of behavior in the presence and the absence of the SD condition. So what does that mean? This is complicated. This PowerPoint's complicated. What do you think this is telling us? And look at the term differential reinforcement. What should we be doing? And we've talked about this in supervision. When we're fading prompts, what do we need to do with the reinforcement?
Give a higher quality or amount of reinforcement when somebody does something.
Yes. So if someone engages in a less intrusive, when we have to use a less intrusive prompt, we have to beef up the level of reinforcement, right? And we've talked about this, right? If someone engages in a behavior that's super independent, they engage it with the natural SD, I'm going to jump to the moon for that person. I'm going to provide the highest level of reinforcement for that independent response. But even for a less intrusive prompt, I'm going to provide a higher level of reinforcement than the prompted response. Does that make sense to you guys? And that's how we use differential reinforcement to fade prompts. Provide a higher level of reinforcement for a more independent response from our VIPs. Because if we make a behavior easier and we provide the same level of reinforcement, why would I ever move to independence? I'm always going to wait for that assistance. It makes the behavior easier, less effortful. And I get the same reward. I shouldn't use word. I get the same reinforcement. So use differential reinforcement in your plan to fade prompting. Go ahead.
Can you provide an example?
Yes, I can. So we may have an individual that requests a drink of water, right? And this is just an example. It's not anything that we should run with in our treatment plan without talking to a BCBA. But maybe we have an individual that requests water. I may, if it's prompted, if we're kind of at a current prompt, I may give them, like a nice sip of water for a prompted response. But if they are able to ask more independently or with a less intrusive prompt, I may fill up that water a bit more. And I may accompany that with positive praise and encouragement. I've also seen VSCs get very clever with this idea, and they decide to put, hey, this person likes ice, I think. For a less intrusive prompt, I'm going to give them a nice cup with beautiful ice water, maybe a little lemon on top, maybe that little umbrella that accompanies the water, right? So as I moved, and that's just a very outlandish example, but to really hit home the point that a more independent response should lead to a better form of reinforcement than a prompted response. And it doesn't mean I'm withholding anything from my VIP. And of course, we have to consider our VIP's abilities as well when we're teaching independence. That's why it's so important that with plan development, you are talking to a BCBA and you know your VIP very well. Any other thing? Great question. Anything else that you guys would like to add or ask? All right, let's continue, please. So the first thing we're going to talk about is fading response prompts. And when we see the word response, what are we thinking about? What word are we thinking about again? Yeah, behavior. So behavior prompt fading, that we're going to fade our behaviors so this person becomes more independent. There's several ways to do this. There's 4 ways that I'm going to review with you today. Some of these we could use in conjunction with each other. Most to least, least to most, time delay, graduated guidance. All right, let's get into them. Response prompt fading most to least. This is probably the most common response prompt fading procedure that we see in the field. Are you guys familiar with this? Some of you. So I have the pyramid that we are likely to see most to least, most intrusive prompts at the bottom, least intrusive prompts at the top, and then an example over on the right of it actually in action. So what we're looking to do is here we have a full physical prompt, which is the most intrusive of all prompting. This is when I'm kind of guiding my VIP's hands, not forcefully, with their permission, and I have to make sure they're okay with this procedure. And I'm guiding them to engage in some kind of skill acquisition behavior, like washing their hands. To teach someone to wash their hands, I may first show a hand over hand, how it's done. I'm having them engage in the behavior and then providing reinforcement afterwards, immediately after. As we look to fade a most to least, we are looking to move up on this pyramid. And you don't always have to go in order. You could skip around, perhaps. And some behaviors might not lead to all of these making sense. Partial physical prompt. So after I teach the hand washing, I may have to guide them by the elbow. And now they're able to engage in the behavior. And I'm providing a higher level of reinforcement for that step in the right direction. Then maybe a light physical prompt, which might be maybe I touch them on their shoulder or something like that. Model gesture. So maybe I gesture to the sink. Maybe I model the behavior for them. I show them in the sink next to them. That's why I liked our bathroom, at least the men's room downstairs. It has 2 sinks. So we're able to model that behavior for hand washing right next to our VIP that may evoke that response from them. Verbal, time to wash our hands. And then the natural cue, they approach the sink and they're able to wash their hands. An example of this, this is an example to clap hands. And look what this clinician did here, which I really like. They took the pyramid and they kind of identified what responses this person that we're going to be engaging in. This could be very effective when we're working with DSPs or other family members, or even to instruct us or technicians to know exactly what behavior what prompt to use in this case. So clap hands. The first one's a full physical, hand over hand to clap. Do you guys see that? Partial physical prompt, hold learner's wrist and forearm. So they're telling us what behavior we should engage in to evoke the behavior from our participant, our learner. Light physical prompt, tap elbows. Model gesture, instructor is going to clap or clinician is going to clap. Provide that model prompt. They do not include a verbal prompt here, which is totally fine. Because the verbal prompt is actually the natural cue that we're encouraging someone to clap, it looks like. So they skip over that verbal prompt in this case. So again, we want to use this in conjunction with least to most. And I'll show you how we do that next. But this is the most to least prompting procedure. Do you guys have any questions about most to least? And remember, guys, we can't just offer this reduced level of prompting without providing a higher level of reinforcement for the more independent response. That is how you teach someone to become more independent. If not, they will most likely always be reliant on your prompting. Remember, temporary, super temporary. After a few trials, I'm looking to fade. Any questions about most to least? All right, least to most is the opposite. It's the same pyramid. We're just moving in the opposite direction. Sometimes when I'm new to a VIP, I'm not sure what level prompting they're going to be required. I may think I don't want to start at a full physical because they may evoke the behavior already for a model gesture. So I'll be working against my VIP to provide a full physical when a model gesture would get the job done for me already. And I'm working against my VIP and myself as a clinician. So sometimes in this case, when I don't know, I'm trying to teach a skill and I'm not sure what kind of prompting this person needs, I'm going to set up the natural cue first. I'm going to set up, say we're doing different example, washing clothes. I'm going to have them approach the washing machine and check to see how well they do. And think of this as the assessment phase. When I'm just kind of gathering information, I'm seeing kind of where they're at now. If they don't engage in the correct response, then I may move up and offer a verbal prompt to see if they engage in the behavior. Think of these as kind of tests. Well, they still don't engage in the behavior after the verbal direction. I'm going to increase to a model gesture. And maybe we don't see the behavior. And then we engage in the light physical prompt, and they start to engage in the clothes washing behavior that we like. Well, now I know a good starting place. And now I could use most to least and start fading this out. Does this make sense to you guys? So I'm using least to most as a test to see exactly where my VIPs are in their learning, and especially working with adults, guys. They've probably been around this behavior for many, many decades at this point when you contact them. So we need to test to see what level of prompting they're at. And be careful not to provide a more intrusive prompt when a lesser one will do. So this is a test. Now, if they're at light physical, this is where I'm going to start. No need to take it this far. And then I use most to least to start fading it out. We have any questions about that idea? Or anything else to add about least to most prompting? Okay, we have an example here of touching blue. We want this person to touch blue. Maybe it's a blue card, something like that. They're first going to tell the person, touch blue, to see if they engage in the behavior. Then, they don't. We're going to point to a blue card. Okay, they still don't engage in the behavior after that. Then we're going to guide learner by the forearm to touch the blue card. They still don't engage in the correct response. Then we're going to do hand over hand, guide the learner to touch the blue card. If the person engaged in the behavior in any of these previous steps, that's a good place to start and switch to most to least then. You can also just continue to do that. You can just continue to try the least intrusive prompt and move up if we don't get the response. And if we think about it, I just thought of it by teaching you guys, it's kind of like an error correction procedure, least to most, right? I never thought of it that way. That we're actually providing a more intrusive prompt if the person doesn't engage in the response or makes a mistake with least to most prompting. Making those connections happen. Go ahead, please.
What would you recommend for, like, for example, when we were working with Shamira, she completed a recipe on her own. So she made some taco pasta.
I love to hear that.
And then we found a recipe book in Catherine's garage, and so it was like five ingredients only. It's like a book full of things that you only need 5 ingredients for. So she completed it in the past, but then I don't know if she got discouraged and maybe she felt like she couldn't do it again. So then it kind of felt like we were starting from ground zero. So what would you recommend? Because it's like, we know you can do it, but maybe you're just psyching yourself out that you can't do it again with different recipes. Because that's what it was. She felt confident, like, I can make taco pasta, but I don't know if I can make this artichoke dip or something like that. So
my first recommendation is bring me some of that taco stuff. All right, that's my first recommendation.
She actually did a really good job. It was really good. That was a vegetarian. She was tearing it up.
My second recommendation, and especially because Shamira knew this behavior, she knew it in the past, which tells me that I don't probably have to do much teaching to get it back in place. So to me, I might my first prompt might be what? Present her with the recipe and see if she can engage in these behaviors. Then, if she needs assistance, I may offer a verbal prompt to see if the verbal prompt, hey, the first step is what's the first step? I'm not a chef or anything like that.
So for the alternative, she would need to get the ingredients first.
Get the ingredients first. That's my first step. So I'm going to say, hey, Shamira, time to gather the ingredients. Get the garlic powder. I don't know. Get the ground beef and see if she engages in that behavior then. And most likely she will there. If she does, this is where I'm going to start. But I'm always going to test Shamira to see if she could follow the recipe on her own. I'm always going to look to fade that prompt with Shamira and with any VIP to see if she could just follow the recipe on her own. And when she does, I'm going to give her so much praise when she's able to complete that step independently. So that's our differential reinforcement. You can see the person, if we don't differentially reinforce, being very reliant on our help. So always use that differential reinforcement, a higher level of reinforcement, in this case, when this person engages in following the recipe, the natural SD. Great question. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Anything else? Does that make sense? And if she doesn't with the verbal, I may need to keep moving up this pyramid, or moving down, I guess.
Yeah, I think because the ingredients were different, like I think that's where she was like, oh no, like I got one recipe down and now this is hard. Like now I have to make something else, you know. So it's not necessarily starting over, it's just maybe encouraging her, like, yes, these are different ingredients for something else, but you did a hard thing before with the other recipe, so you can do it with the artichoke.
No, I love that approach because you're teaching the generalization. You're you know, it's like we want to make sure we program that generalization into our treatment plans, because we wouldn't want to teach Shamira the same recipe over and over and over again. She's only good at making one. We want to show her a few recipes that she could follow. Then she's much more likely to pick up another one, another different one. So great conversation, great question. Anything else that you guys would like to ask or add?
I noticed that using their language helps them too. Like sometimes it can be a little weird because it's like our VIPs, they just, oh Lord. Sometimes they say that, and I noticed, I'm like, this is bussin'. She's like, yeah, baby, yeah. You know, so like if I'm like, oh, this is good, she's like, oh, like, do you like it? But if I say this is bussin', and I do like a little, you know, then she's kind of like feeling like I'm relating to her, like I'm almost like mirroring her.
I love that.
You know?
Well, and to me, like what you've done is you developed a great relationship. You found out actually things that are strong reinforcers for your VIP, and you're using that to encourage future behavior. So excellent work. I love that. I just thought that was brilliant. Great job. Anything else? Do these ideas make sense? Go ahead, please.
I feel like me starting out and like getting that's like my VIPs, I'm most likely going to be using like least to most because I don't really know them. So like seeing their natural cues and then saying like, okay, like she or she's not responding to like a prompt, like a natural prompt, like, hey everybody, let's clap our hands, and they're not reacting to that. Maybe they need like that second step and then going down, and then me seeing how they are with the natural cues and then making my way down. I feel like this is gonna be like the most helpful.
Yeah.
And then seeing where I go from there, like most of these, or then like prompting more and things like that.
Good thinking. I totally agree with you. Yeah, use this as your test. Use this as your guide. It's to where to start. Great job. All right, let's continue, please. All right, time delay prompting. And guys, we can use this in conjunction with the other prompt fading procedures. And this is a very simple idea. This is a very nice idea, and I really like this because it doesn't require me to be thinking so much about it. And pretty much all I'm going to do is find a prompt that is very successful for this VIP. And a lot of times this might be a vocal prompt, not always, but it could be a vocal prompt that I'm engaging in with this VIP. And all I'm going to do is increase the time between when I present the natural SD before I offer the prompt, right? And Nicole, I feel like we just talked about this, right? And all we're going to do is, okay, I'm going to wait 3 seconds and I'm going to do a couple trials. The next time I'm going to wait 5 seconds before offering my prompt to see if the person will engage in this behavior independently. Then I'm going to wait 7 seconds before I offer that verbal prompt. I'm really not changing my prompt. I could, but I'm not really. All I'm using is a prompt that's been successful for me with this VIP, and I'm increasing the time before I offer that prompt. Eventually, you'll be at 20, 30, 40 seconds, and you have faded yourself out, right? You have naturally faded yourself out. This isn't set in stone. Sometimes I work with a VIP, and we talked about this too, that I think he's going to say it. He's about to say it. I feel it. I'm going to wait before I offer my prompt. I'm going to bite my tongue, because how many times did I offer that prompt, and as soon as I did, that person said it? I'm like, if I waited one more moment, I would have got that independent response. Know your VIP. Fade those prompts. Time delay is easy to do, easy to think about. I just fade that prompt away, increase the time before I offer it. Choose a prompt that's reliable to evoke the behavior. Obviously, we want to use prompts that are reliably evoking behavior, else they're not even a prompt. Any questions about time delay prompting? Bite your tongue prompting is another name for it that I just came up with. Time delay prompting. Very useful, very effective. Next one. Graduated guidance. Prompting technique in which physical guidance is provided only when needed and faded immediately as possible. Provide physical guidance as needed, but immediately fade assistance per behavior. Begin with shadowing the learner closely, which is really important for all of these steps to make sure we do a proper assessment. All of these prompt fading procedures, that we know where our VIPs stand currently, so we can move them gradually in the right direction. Provide physical guidance as needed. So what are we going to do? We're going to swoop in when this person starts to struggle. Provide that physical assistance. And as soon as they start to have success, I'm fading away. I'm backing away. The idea is that I want to back away so much that I am out the door and I'm in the other room and this person is engaging in the behavior. If they start to struggle, I'm swooping in to help. But then when they start to engage in the correct response again, I'm going to fade away. And I'm going to fade away. Prompting from behind is a great procedure for this procedure. Prompting from behind is a great procedure all around too. Graduated guidance, guys. Another easy tactic to use for prompt fading. I'm going to swoop in when my VIP is struggling, and then I'm going to fade away when they start to have success again. Only applying interventions when needed. Any questions about graduated guidance? So those are the 4 response prompt fading procedures that we could consider when we're working with our VIPs. Remember, guys, prompts should be temporary. We fade them out immediately. After a few trials of success, we are fading those prompts away. We are guiding other practitioners in the field, DSPs, stakeholders, parents, whoever, to follow these same procedures. We do not want our VIPs to be reliant on intrusive prompting forever. We want to make them as independent as possible based on their abilities, and to live a more independent and enriched life. Okay? Prompt, response prompts. Okay, let's continue, please. Okay, there's more actually. Probably talked about this. Increase distance gradually, changing location of physical prompt, then proximity of prompt there. Spatial fading is what they call it. Prompt immediately if an error or no response. So we're swooping in, providing that prompt. Good to use for behavior chains. So what's an example of a behavior chain?
Like that one behavior kind of escalates to different behaviors, or they usually occur in conjunction with each other.
Well, yeah, and think about an ultimate reinforcer, and like we're back in the bathroom, we're brushing our teeth. What behaviors do we have to engage in to complete brushing our teeth? It's not just one behavior, right? What are some of the behaviors? Get the toothbrush. Then what?
Toothpaste.
Get the toothpaste. Then
Put it
what?
on.
Yeah,
Open it.
squeeze it out. There's none left. You have to roll it up. You guys know the drill. You guys know the drill, right? So I'm engaged in all these behavior, and think of behavior chain is a multiple behaviors that lead to that ultimate reinforcement. So when I'm teaching a behavior chain, I may swoop in when my VIP struggles with a step, but then I'm fading away when they're being successful with steps. Another example I always talk about is like opening your door to get in your house. What are the steps to that? And then one person's like, I don't lock my door, Mike. I was like, okay. You still have some behavior chains going on there. Right? You go to the door, you have to go approach the door, find the right key. You could have many keys. Look at your keychain, guys. Some of them you might not be using. You could kind of remove them, make it easier for yourself. I had to do that several times. I'm like, oh my God, my keys are so heavy. I'm like, what are these keys? Find the right key. You have to put it in the door a certain way. You have to turn your hand. You have to turn the knob. You have to push the door open. A lot of behaviors, behavioral chain to lead to that ultimate reinforcer. It allows for some more flexibility when you, we're not as like focused on that pyramid and things like that. When you feel the learner responding on their own, reduce prompting. So we're kind of letting them be our guide and carefully attend to the child or adult's movements to learn when more intrusive prompts may be needed. So when they start to struggle, they make a mistake, they make no response, we are swooping in to provide that assistance. I think that's it. Let's just make sure. Yes, okay. Response prompting. Any questions about those 4 types? Fade your prompts, temporary. Start with the least intrusive prompt that will reliably evoke the behavior we want to see. Go ahead.
So should we be taking data on our prompts?
Yes, we could be. We could take data on our prompting, which is a great way to determine behavioral chains. We could use it in many ways.
I feel like it would also help to show the independence.
Yes, to make sure that our procedures are working, yes, as well. Yes, that would be great to collect on prompting level as well.
There is a way to do that.
There is. There totally is. Actually, our Jackie knows how to do it.
Yeah. Jackie's the pro at the prompt.
I can help.
Thank you, Jackie. Stimulus prompts, guys, is a second type of prompting. The first thing we need to consider is they're easier to fade. It's easier to fade a stimulus prompt than a response prompt. Why do you guys think that is? Why is it easier to fade a stimulus prompt? Well, the one reason that I think about is that it's hard to control every other person in this person's life to be like, hey, we're on the light physical prompting right now. Don't offer hand-over-hand assistance, right? So it's kind of hard to get everyone on the same page, exactly what prompt we're on. Not impossible, just more effort from us to make sure everyone's delivering the prompt level that we're on and looking to fade that procedure. When they have DSPs on the floor, people coming in and out, family members involved, they contact hundreds of people a day perhaps, and they could be offering more intrusive prompts. So response prompts are more difficult to fade. So stimulus prompts may be the way to go. There are these are a few types, but there's many more. One clear example is a position prompt. I feel like we talked about this too. Positional prompt. We're going to place the correct choice closer to the client or VIP. So if I'm having matching or I'm having someone select something and they keep picking the wrong one or they're not reliable, I may move that stimulus a little bit closer to them, right? So I make that correct answer easier to grab. As the person grabs it, I'm going to provide reinforcement and then look to fade it back to the natural array. Redundancy prompt is another example. One or more stimulus or response dimension, color, size, or shape are paired with the correct choice. So, I don't know, did we talk about money for this one? So if I'm teaching like money denominations to someone, I may use my computer and blow up, because money's similar. Let's not go too far ahead. Money's similar. They're green, it's green, the bills, they have an old guy on it. right? It's like to the untrained eye, it's like they look similar. Like, how do I tell these apart? Well, I may use a redundant prompt and make that denomination in the corner really big to draw their eye. This is where you should be looking. And this is a type of discrimination training as well, guys. Make that really big so that the person could easily identify what that number is and kind of training their eyes to what to look for. I've also seen and that's an example of size. Color is another example I include here. So for instance, and this is what I remember from school. Remember in like when you had like your auditorium, you had like a presentation in the auditorium? What would they put on the ground to kind of signal where you should stand? Yeah, or like a little piece of tape, masking tape or something. That's a stimulus prompt, telling the students where to stand. After a little bit, they could probably take that tape away. The child knows where to stand, right? Color, size, shape. Can someone give me an example of a shape? I can't think of one. One time we were teaching a VIP to put on their shirt the correct way. And I was like, okay, how do I put on my shirt the right way? I look for what? I don't know if you guys do this. You might not. Maybe I'm just like a total weirdo. What was that? The tag. The tag, right? What did you say? Okay, I mean, to each their own. Whatever works for you, Nicole. Whatever works for you.
Or the logo.
Yeah, the logo. Good idea. Like I look at the tag. I got a shirt that doesn't have those features. And the tag indicates what? The shirt, the tag goes where?
In the back.
So I might take a Post-it note that's fluorescent and put it on the tag on the back. As I'm teaching someone to look for that antecedent stimulus that will signal the correct response. And I might put that fluorescent, hey, check out, look for the tag. And I make it so easy for that person to see that tag. And I start to fade it away. The fading away of these stimulus prompts is thinking about like what's the natural thing. So as I might make that fluorescent slip smaller and smaller and smaller until I fade it out completely. I may change the color of it. It gets closer to the natural color of this item. There's a lot of ways you could do that. Those are just two types of stimulus prompting that we could consider. There's many more. Let's continue, please. I don't think I get into many more of them. Okay, this is an example of stimulus prompting in a math book, teaching young learners how to do math. What do they use? And look at, I love this example because it shows how the teacher is feeding this prompt. So what do they show you here? The figures.
They're really bold, and then they become like lighter and lighter over time.
They become lighter and lighter until look, boom, and then what? They're gone. So they're using the stimulus prompt very effective here in teaching the student 7 minus 2. I don't really understand it though, because it's 5.
They have it separate and then they put it together.
Okay, sure.
You know what? Yeah, that's weird.
That's not important, but what is important is the fading, that they use these people to show a stimulus, to prompt the learner, and then they fade it away into the natural SD. And that's what we should be thinking about when we're fading prompting. Any questions about this example, besides the math part?
I like how they faded the dot on the head too.
They
I don't
fade-
understand. Why didn't they just start from like the 4th one and
Well, they should have used least to most prompting and figured it out.
why is the dot faded?
I guess with little kids, I think
Yeah, kids like do like touch math.
Yeah, I think there are some numbers.
I
on
did the
that.
same
Oh, my eyes are sorry.
Guys, okay, you guys get the idea here. All right, let's continue, please. Okay, so this is the last slide of the presentation, guys. And this is an error correction procedure. Next week's training is going to be with John McElway. He's one of the first BCBAs that we're proud to have on our team. And he's going to be doing a presentation. The next week's training starts at 8:15, just to let you guys know. It'll be Wednesday, okay, at 8:15. It's going to be we'll have it set up in here, but he will be broadcasting it online, okay? And the whole training is going to be about error correction. And this is just a little taste of what's to come next week. So in error correction, we don't want our VIPs to continue to make mistakes as we're teaching them. If they keep what happens when you keep making mistakes? What happens?
Like the same mistake? Or
Yeah.
different?
What if I kept making the mistake doing something I was working on? Yes, you're not too enthused to do that behavior again in the future. You keep getting punished. You could become what? Frustrated, upset, hurting my relationship with the clinician that's trying to teach me, right? So our error, and scientifically speaking and ABA speaking, we are not promoting a behavior that leads to reinforcement, which is our main go-to in teaching people. So when our VIPs make a mistake, it's important that we correct that mistake immediately to lead them to success, because we do not want them to make a mistake again. We do not want them to err twice in a row. So this is just 4-step procedure that I like to think about when I'm thinking about an error correction. My VIP made a mistake. A mistake is made. This is a procedure I use with one of my VIPs, so it's really individualized. I like to break eye contact or hold up my hand to indicate an incorrect response. I'm not telling the person, you're wrong, that's not correct, that was bad, or anything like that. I'm just looking away, reducing the level of reinforcement for this incorrect response. I'm waiting 3 seconds because I don't want to create a behavioral chain that someone makes a mistake, then I prompt them immediately, and then they engage in the correct response because they're likely to keep doing those behaviors. So I wait 3 to 5 seconds, which I should have in here. Break eye contact, 3 to 5 seconds, and I'm going to increase my prompt level. I'm going to provide a higher and more intrusive prompt at that time to ensure my VIP gets the correct answer. When they do, I'm going to provide reinforcement. Any questions, guys, about prompt fading, prompts, response prompts, stimulus prompts, or error correction procedures? Anything to add?
Not a question, but I feel like prompts in general, like any of your VIPs, it really depends on the behaviors that they have.
Yeah.
Because a lot of major behaviors sometimes is just from attention seeking. So it's like you providing that prompt. Sometimes you're like reinforcing them just by giving them that prompt. So it really just depends on like the behaviors you're engaging in as a whole. Like once you get used to the VIP, like okay, like you're just doing that because you want my attention. So it's like, am I gonna keep prompting you and giving you that reinforcement, or I'm gonna provide like one of the fades where I'm like, all right, not providing you that attention right away, but like making you wait those few seconds, and then if you're honestly still like going with the behavior, then prompt you to like fade you out instead of giving you it consistently like that.
Right. Anything else? All right, guys. Anything from our online community? All right, guys. I really appreciate your attendance today. I hope you guys learned something. And I've learned a lot as well. So I appreciate you guys and your participation. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good rest of your day and enjoy the circus.
Oh, voluntold.